Hello and thank you for joining. We begin with the OPP, who have now laid murder charges in the connection with the death of a teenage girl on the Big Grassy River First Nation near Fort Frances. 24-year-old Daryl Tuesday was arrested this past Monday and has been charged with first-degree murder for the death of 15-year-old Autumn Andy. OPP had released a photo of the Big Grassy River man last week on Wednesday morning, saying they were looking for the public's assistance in locating him. While that was happening, Treaty 3 police enlisted OPP for help in locating Andy after she was reported missing by her family. On that Wednesday night, her body was discovered behind the outdoor skating rink on the Big Grassy Reserve. Police identified her this week and said the Criminal Investigation Branch was investigating the circumstances surrounding her death. OPP also say the suspect was located sometime Monday and was charged with murder. Tuesday remains in custody and is scheduled to appear in Fort Frances Court on June 25th. OPP and Kenora have added another charge against a 26-year-old male in relation to a sudden death in that community earlier this year. On February 26th, a 77-year-old female was found dead in a residence on Railway Street. Initially, the male was charged with assault causing bodily harm, but on June 19th, a second-degree murder charge was added. He has been in custody since the incident in February and appeared in court this past Wednesday. The OPP's Criminal Investigations Branch is continuing to investigate the circumstances surrounding the death. A monumental agreement has been made this week between the Long Lake 58 First Nation and Greenstone Gold Mines. Both organizations have entered into a partnership with each other to further develop a potential economic driver in the Greenstone area. Adam Riley has more.
It feels we had accomplished something that we wanted to do for so long.
It's an amazing step. I think we are very proud to have this agreement.
With a few strokes of a pen, the economic future of Long Lake 58 and Greenstone is now looking much brighter. The community located west of Long Lac has agreed to support efforts by Greenstone Gold Mines to develop its hard rock project near Geraldton. Chief Veronica Wabou says when the lake levels were altered and when Highway 11 was built through their territory, the community had no say in the matter. But this time things are different, as the agreement was voted upon by the membership of the First Nation.
Our goal was to have resources within our territory, and that's what it is. This is the first time we ever had something like that, and I'm proud of my people for voting yes. And it means a lot to the future of our children.
Wabou says much of the community is on some form of government assistance, but part of the agreement gives the community options towards economic development, as well provides assistance from a mental health and substance abuse perspective by offering members the ability to seek help and employment opportunities nearby. Hard Rock General Manager Eric Lamontagne says talks were ongoing for years, but only within the last few months were the finer details discussed.
2 years ago, we done some negotiation and progress, but none. I think that the trigger happens in January, February this year when we agreed for the principle of the agreement, and from there, after that, we meeting more often to finalize the agreement together.
Lamontagne calls the agreement a milestone in the process of the creation of the mine and says it was imperative to have the agreement in place with the First Nation, as the mine will be located within their traditional territory. Aside from local and regional infrastructure such as Highway 11, which needs to be moved, an environmental assessment being reviewed by the government, and financing for this billion-dollar project still being sought after, there's much to do before a mine can be built. But for now, the company is content as they have something more valuable than government approval or cash: a partner. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Thousands of people gathered across the country to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day on Thursday, and plenty of people took in the festivities put on by the Red Rock Indian Band near Nipigon. But as Tony Brar reports, this year had a special meaning for the residents of that community.
Bouncy castles, food, archery, and horseback riding were just a few of the many activities people could take in during the Red Rock Indian Band's National Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations. Chief Matt Dupuis says every year they invite several local schools to the event, and this year he was pleasantly surprised with the turnout.
This year they they all came, but also the entire schools came. So I mean, we've had hundreds of people through the door, and we've got events set up all over the whole area, and everyone's having a good time.
Dupuis says he loves seeing people come out and celebrate their heritage and calls it a day of happiness. It was a very special day for one of the students at St. Edward's Catholic School in nearby Nipigon.
I did our native prayer, and I was pretty nervous to do it in front of all those people, and it just meant so much to get to celebrate it with all these people. It meant a lot to me because I like doing my language, and it's just amazing.
The band itself was celebrating a milestone event as visitors were able to get an up-close sneak peek at the upgrades at the Chalet Lodge where the celebrations have been held in years past. Last year, the property became part of the community through an addition to reserve.
There's been a major transformation of the entire lodge site. The grand opening for it to be very soon, and we're going to be excited to show it all off. I mean, we're, like I said, 90% of the way there, but the final 10% is going to take us over the finish line.
Dupuis says when not in use for community events, the lodge will be able to act as a hub for training and economic development. Tony Brar, TBT News.
The festivities continued at Anemki Waju, also known as Mount McKay, to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day. It was a chance to honor the culture, heritage, and history of Canada's First Peoples. Carmen Wong has the story.
National Indigenous Peoples Day was formerly known as National Aboriginal Day. Following a 2-year run at Thunder Bay's Marina Park, the local celebration moved back to Mount McKay. The festivities took place on the lookout where community members shared stories, experiences, and songs. Thousands of people gathered to celebrate and acknowledge the heritage of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Event co-chair Ashley Nirmala says the celebration allows the public to be better acquainted with the cultural diversity of the city.
The importance is having everybody come together, Indigenous, non-Indigenous, all different diverse backgrounds, and just sharing what we have, sharing the knowledge, sharing the tradition, the culture, the crafts, the foods, and just enjoying it all together as one.
The day included a grand entry, drum circles, and dances as people of all ages gathered to share a heritage that has existed for thousands of years. Power dancers Nevaeh Morceau says she recognizes the importance of the event and hopes that people around the world will recognize Indigenous cultures and the contributions First Nations have made.
Make more awareness of it, how it began and whatnot about Canada. Not just Canada, but everywhere. Not just Indigenous peoples.
This year's theme is sharing and honoring Indigenous history. National Indigenous Peoples Day has been celebrated since 1996, and June 21st was chosen because it corresponds with the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year. Alan Wemagon says he dances for the elders who are unable to participate in the powwow. He says participating in the celebrations is important because it helps bring awareness to his culture.
Feeling the beat of the drum, it's just something that's a part of us, and it just feels real good when I'm out there dancing. Get to pray, get to just let off any steam that I have, just bring positive vibes, dance for the ones who can't dance.
Nirmala says the celebration is also part of the healing process of First Nations. She says it encourages all to not only take part in the cultural practices, but to learn our shared history.
It breaks down barriers and may break down myths and stereotypes that may possibly exist. And I really feel like it's just good for everyone's benefit.
Carmen Wong, TBT News.
A highway safety initiative by the Ontario Provincial Police resulted in dozens of charges against transport truck drivers who were checked in northwestern Ontario. Operation Corridor Enforcement was conducted across the province on June 13 and 14th. Regional results released this week compare unfavorably with the OPP discovered the rest of Ontario. In the Northwest region, police stopped 93 transport trucks and laid a total of 60 charges. The most common offense by far was speeding, with 35 of the 93 drivers being ticketed. 8 truckers were charged for exceeding the permitted hours of continuous service, and OPP also took 4 trucks off the road for safety reasons. Across the province, about 1,700 transport trucks were stopped, resulting in just under 700 charges. 226 of those charges were for speeding alone. The new MPP for Thunder Bay Atikokan is in the process of setting up her constituency office. Judith Monteith Farrell's headquarters will be located at the corner of George and Simpson Street in Thunder Bay. It doesn't look like much now, but soon this building at 409 George Street will be ready to open to the public. Once it's open, the new space is expected to have 2 staff members. She says she has already attended her first NDP caucus meeting and went to the MPP orientation session where she got to sit in a seat at Queen's Park for the first time. She says that's when it all began to sink in. Monteith Farrell says she is eager to get the office running and begin work.
It's the one-on-one, but it's also getting to know the institution. So I went to a board meeting for the hospital. I've met with the university president. I'm looking forward to getting that overview and what's the burning issues for them. I started getting emails, phone calls, those kinds of things right off the bat. So I went into advocate mode and started answering things as much as I could at that time without the resources that I will have as a MPP.
She also says she hopes to have the office open by August 1st. Also, plans are in the works for a satellite office in Atikokan. A startling report released on Monday revealed the latest child poverty rates across the country. The advocacy group Campaign 2000 looked at census and income data in all 338 federal ridings, and the report shows 3 northwestern Ontario districts are all at the higher end of the scale. The Kenora riding ranked 7th highest across Canada, with nearly 35% of children living below the poverty line. Thunder Bay Rainy River riding ranked 86th at around 21%. And Thunder Bay Superior North was close behind, ranked 90th in the country. Social researcher Bonnie Kurizawate with the Lakehead Social Planning Council says the numbers are a reflection that more needs to be done to improve the lives of children in our region.
There's failures in the system. We can see in the report that many children in Canada are living below the low-income measure, which we know for families is less than $30,000 a year in Thunder Bay. So, yeah, I think that we're seeing that systems aren't working right now to help bring children out of poverty and families out of poverty.
The report also indicates that Indigenous children and children from visible minorities are most likely to live in poverty. Coming up after the break, officials at Thunder Bay's Regional Health Sciences Center began 2018 off with a fundraising effort for its new cardiac surgery unit. Superior North EMS will be down an ambulance for an extended period of time after one of their units collided with a moose Wednesday. The collision happened about 100 kilometers north of the city on Highway 527 at around 5 o'clock in the morning. Two paramedics were returning to their Armstrong station after transporting a patient to Thunder Bay Regional when the moose suddenly entered the road. Both paramedics were able to walk away from the collision with only minor injuries, but the ambulance was not as lucky as it appears to be a write-off. It is valued at $140,000. This is the second time in the past month that a Superior North ambulance has collided with a moose. While the decision on who will build the transmission line between Thunder Bay and Wawa is still being reviewed by the Ontario Energy Board, Supercom is spearheading the training for what could be one of the biggest economic booms for the North Shore. Adam Riley reports.
Construction of the East-West Tie or Lake Superior Link is still in the development stage, but that hasn't stopped Supercom from moving ahead with training the hundreds of workers who will be needed for the infrastructure project. Red Rock Indian Band Chief Matt Dupuis explains what is happening at the Supercom Training Center, located 30 kilometers north of Nipigon.
We acquired a block of timber through one of our partners, and they are actually learning how to operate forestry equipment, but they're also running a forestry operation where they have a block of wood that they have to harvest.
Students first spend several months receiving training in a classroom setting at the former Red Rock Public School and at Confederation College before moving into the field where they get their hands-on training with actual vehicles. Jean-Marc Fortier has been teaching the future workforce. He says the students he has worked with have impressed him in how well they have picked up the training and have adapted to the environment.
I can sure tell you they opened my eyes on the willingness and adapting to the elements and everything to learn what they want to try to pursue in a career. It's awesome. These students that we have here, they really come a long ways from the first day we met them, where they've been really timid to get on the machines to where they're positioned right now.
Fortier says students have learned everything from safety to operations to even being able to diagnose issues with the vehicles. He says there are currently 9 students in the field, but has worked with many more over the past month.
We've done this program a few times now, and it's for me, it's nice to see where they start and then we're at the end of the course where they finish, and you hope that they take up this career.
Dupuis adds the training program isn't just a one-off project and will provide benefits for years to come.
All these positions are transferable, whether it's pipeline, whether it's telecommunications. So for this area, it's one project that's going to build a sustainable workforce in this entire region.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
Coming up next, we'll find out how the many Northwest communities are tackling infrastructure to aid the growing senior population. Many Northwest communities are beginning to invest in infrastructure to aid the growing senior population. A pair of North Shore townships are very close to completing 2 projects, and both recently held open houses to give those interested in a sneak peek of the facilities. Adam Riley has the details.
Northwestern Ontario has an aging population, and many wish to live out their golden years in their home communities. It's that fact which has nudged many towns throughout the region to begin investing in the construction of seniors' homes. Nipissing Councillor James Fold says there is a real need in his community for seniors housing, as the town has been recognized as a seniors community.
As much as they'd like to stay in their own homes and do their own maintenance, there comes a time when they start looking around. And Nipissing really, our senior complex that we do have, Shalanda Court, has been full for years, and we actually have a waiting list on it. So this development will allow people that want to stay in the community to be close to their families.
Currently, renovations are underway at a former elementary school on Bell Street in the town. On Thursday, potential residents were able to get a sneak peek at what living at the yet-to-be-named complex would be like. Dan Shebish is the president of Atlas Properties, who is developing the $1.25 million project. He says people are able to see what Phase 1 will look like, which is 4 one-bedroom and 3 two-bedroom apartments. And if enough interest is expressed, a further 12 to 13,000 square feet will be developed. He adds so far the project has progressed well.
There were a few challenges. The architect had windows placed sometimes, or those in exterior columns, that we had to move windows around and change sizes and that. But basically the project went very smoothly, and we're a little bit ahead of schedule.
Meanwhile, residents in Marathon also got a chance to look at Peninsula Manor. Unlike Nipissing, this building is brand new, much larger, will offer different services, and has a higher price point at around $10 million. Marathon CAO Daryl Skorczynski says this project is a major undertaking for the community, but some are still expressing concern over the facility, which the developer CGV Developments plans to hand over to the town later this year.
One of the common misconceptions is that the municipal tax levy is going to support the building, and that's not factual. So, the municipality, a not-for-profit corporation was set up to house the asset. It is that not-for-profit corporation that's going to be borrowing commercially, the balance of loan, about $7 million. To finish the construction.
Skorczynski says the complex will be a great fit for Marathon and will mesh well with both the town's residential and healthcare sectors. Both Skorczynski and officials with CGV say construction of the facility is ahead of schedule by over a month, meaning residents will be able to move into Peninsula Manor much sooner than anticipated. A grand opening is set for October. Adam Riley, TBT News.
And finally, the Pigeon River border crossing saw a special event this week as law enforcement personnel joined Special Olympic athletes in delivering the Flame of Hope. The second annual Law Enforcement Border Torch Run marks a beginning to the upcoming Summer Games for our neighbors south of the border. Tony Breyer has the story.
For the second straight year, Thunder Bay law enforcement personnel met with the city's Special Olympic athletes on the Canadian side of the Pigeon River. The group carrying the Flame of Hope walked in unison to meet their southern neighbors at the Canadian-U.S. border and exchange the flame.
This is the kickoff for the Law Enforcement Torch Run for Special Olympics for Minnesota. Our summer games start on Friday, June 22nd in St. Paul, and the torch will make a journey from the Canadian border all the way to St. Paul.
Law enforcement have been a long-time supporter of Special Olympics, and we are known as the Guardian of the Flame. So this Flame of Hope is something that we pass and we bring into all games that have to do with Special Olympics, showing our support for these athletes and showing that we're going to be here no matter what.
In this special event, American Special Olympic athletes Dave Lane had the opportunity to hold the torch at the American border. He, along with other athletes, say the Flame of Hope is a symbol that holds an important message.
Flame of Hope, it tells me to keep staying active and keep staying involved with Special Olympics and just keeping their spirit alive.
Well, to me, it gives hope for other people with autism, such as myself, to play sports that they never thought they'd play before and go on to amazing trips.
And for Thunder Bay's honored Special Olympics athlete, to be involved in such an event is something he will always hold close to his heart.
It feels really honored, to be honest. I'm honored that me and my friends over there are walking across to America for this torch. And I'm really honored that everyone came out here to support us.
Tony Breyer, TBT News.
And that's all we have for this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. Stay tuned until next time. I'm Jason Gaidola. Take care.